The Florida Panthers lose their first set of back-to-back games since mid-December, but they're getting some rest. But they're also will be without one of their defensemen. Let's chat about it.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, March 18th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MonoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $200 if your first bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, Florida Panther fans, great to be back chatting with you on the show. Sorry about the later release for this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Saturday's game, I did listen on the radio as I was traveling. Did not have a video feed on me because two hands behind the wheel. You don't want to be texting/tweeting and driving. And just finished watching it just 30 minutes ago, right before hitting record and all. And really for the Panthers, I mean, like we said at the top, lost their first set of back-to-back games in regulation since mid-December. So a little bit of adversity has hit the Florida Panthers now as they are getting a whole bunch of rest coming up where their next game won't be until Thursday. But I mean, you think about with the Panthers, I mean, 38-5 shot on goal advantage after the first 20 minutes. I mean, the Panthers just having a hard time defending the transition of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, Nico Mikkola with a bad pitch on a 2-on-1, and then it goes off the skate of Brandon Montour off of Steven Stamkos. I put that more on Mikkola more than I do Montour. He's trying to block the centering feed, and then it unfortunately goes back past Sergei Bobrovsky 20 seconds, into the hockey game. And then just a lot of mishandling of the puck and all in their own end. I mean, the second one where Bobrovsky made the stop on Asma and then he scored on the follow through. Maybe Bob should have that, but I mean, still it's one on a rush where Brandon Montour mishandled it in the neutral zone and it ends up that. But I mean, you think about what went wrong in this game for the Panthers and all, and it's just the inability also to score on the power play after too when it comes to that. I mean, you went 1 for 7, including going on a 5-on-3 for over a minute, just over a minute, and you dealt with questionable officiating on the game, which we'll talk more about in the second segment, but also when it comes to just towards the end too, with the kicking Steven Stamkos out of the face-off circle, then the linesman coming in and saying that he could go back. Really, these referees aren't mic'd up, so we don't know what the communication is in between of what one linesman saw right before dropping the puck versus what the other said too. So, I mean, just not a good game for the officials and not a good game for also the second pair because also after that, I mean, on the Radish goal, Mikkola is committing to one side, and then Taylor Radish takes advantage of that. And the worst part is, outside of the empty net goal by Kucherov and the power play goal by Stamkos, and the first one, I mean, you allowed some depth scoring for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, you're not going to win a lot of hockey games when you're giving up 5 goals. I mean, the Panthers, they've been great at keeping games close, 1-goal games. So this is really unlike the Panthers of what we've seen. I mean, but you got to give them credit for responding to adversity as well when going down. I mean, yeah, we saw it in Dallas. Yeah, we saw it a little bit in this one too, even though after the Josh Mahura goal was taken off the board due to the penalty on Kulikov, that was my, even though this isn't an immediate post-game show, that it is my moment where I thought the game was won or lost there. I mean, But a few things did come out of it. I mean, Chucky had his first shorthanded goal of his career. He doesn't play a lot of PK time, so that's great to see. After Sam Reinhart gets hit in the mouth just under the nose with a high stick from Nikita Kucherov, he gets 2 goals on the night with his 47th and 48th there too. It was coincidental minors, which was the right call, I will say. As far as that's one of the calls that I won't argue as far as that, because he did stick out his leg on that, while Kucherov did get his stick up high. But the race is still on for it. And the Panthers, how they were moving the puck, zipping it and around their zone. And I mean, hitting the crossbar a lot on the night. Verhaeghe's wrister right before they were going up on the 5-on-3, stopped by Vasilevskiy, and then Montour's shot was stopped by Matt Dumba, who was slow to get up. And when it comes to that, and just the opportunity for the Panthers, and just once again going when it comes to emotional advantage for the opposition, once again lately, it's just when it comes to where Florida is and where other teams have been, it's just consistently needing to match that. And in the last 40 minutes, you saw the Florida Panthers do that. I mean, there's been Tampa Bay is still very little threat, but they are a bit in danger of missing the postseason. Still very unlikely, in my opinion. But this is a game where it's the final of the 3-game series. The Florida Panthers win both of them, the last one especially in convincing fashion. I mean, this is really a game that the Tampa Bay Lightning have got up for. And again, odd man rushes against a bit discombobulated. I mean, the Panthers were able to solve those issues a bit against the Carolina Hurricanes, but that's now 2 out of 3 games where it's a proven winner in Tampa Bay, where they've gotten out in transition, and the Florida Panthers have been unable to defend the rush. And even in Dallas, I mean, credit to Sergei Bobrovsky, especially in that Dallas game where he was the reason why they kept it close. I mean, hard to stop a 2-on-0 last week and all, but then after that, I mean, locked in and all. And but the Panthers aren't the only ones who have been a bit discombobulated there. I mean, we saw that back last month. I mean, even in the goal that Sam Reinhart scored to bring it within 1, with Vasilevskiy mishandling the puck, and then I believe it was Calvin DeHaan who lost an edge too. So it's another. We've seen that both teams are prone to mistakes too, and when you see 50-17 in shots on goals, it's not going to be every single time where the Florida Panthers are going to have the inability to find the back of the net. I mean, we just saw Vezina levels of Vasilevskiy. I mean, even in the post-game show while I was driving to my destination, I mean, Billy Lindsay in the post-game show was looking up the expected goals, and all I was saying was, I can't wait to watch this the video feed here. The Tampa Bay Lightning at 5-on-5, he said that it was just under 2, while the Panthers were just over 6 too. And listen, I mean, when your save percentage is under 900, but with the resume that he has and especially coming off the back surgery, I mean, it takes a while. So this kind of performance, and knowing what time of year it is as we're getting closer to the playoff hunt, it can't be surprised whenever you see a performance like that, because we've seen it before and all. And Paul Murray spoke about how this quote, we need to get our mental edge back, and I liked where we got to, and he close quote, and he also said, quote, you're not in a good mood and you don't like losing games, but if you lose, you better learn. We can learn. I'm more comfortable tonight than I was after the Dallas game, far more, close quote. So obviously with the Dallas game, it was the final 20 minutes where the Panthers were tilting the ice, but in this one, it was the final 40 minutes, despite being down 2 after 1. And it's just unfortunate too, because that's a game where it hurts Sergei Bobrovsky's save percentage and his chance for the Vezina. But I mean, we're talking about team as far as winning as a team and not really individual awards. But I mean, I kind of looked at that as like, man, that's hurting Sergei Bobrovsky's chances of winning the Vezina, especially with Thatcher Demko hurt. Connor Hellebuyck is still hot too. So that giving up 2 goals in the first, his first 2 shots faced in the second period, that's definitely hurts his case then. And if the season ended today, because if we're going based off points percentage, these two are slated to meet in round 1, where the Florida Panthers are currently, as far as points percentage, not points, the second best record in the Eastern Conference, with the New York Rangers owning the second tiebreaker as far as regulation overtime wins. Same amount of wins, same amount of points, same amount of regulation wins, but just one more regulation overtime win. So this is going to be a fun finish. And Saturday night, oh man, I'm really, really excited for that. But again, momentum was really shifted once Mahura's goal was taken off the board. And it's because of the penalty that was committed by Demitri Kulakov. And we are going to discuss that more in segment number 2. So stay with us, and as we discuss this and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. And do you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer from the other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRA and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA is available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker dealer. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern for the best MLB preview coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern, be the first to get local insight from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Fire TV channels app. Back on this Monday, March 18th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday. So the Florida Panthers, like we said at the top, they are getting a whole bunch of rest coming up this week with no game until Thursday night at home against the Nashville Predators, which will be a nationally televised game on ESPN Plus and Hulu. But they are going to be short once again coming up because chances are, as I have all my notifications on, just waiting for some type of announcement for Demitri Kulakov, and chances are by the time this podcast releases, we could hear the verdict of Demitri Kulakov's hit on Connor Sheary from Saturday night against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So let's talk about it real quick. The Florida Panthers, they were about to bring the deficit down to a 3-1 deficit. Josh Mahura scored. Dmitry Kulikov is driving towards the middle, trying to attempting to go after the puck, which was near Connor Sheary, and then delivers a hit, and then Connor Sheary goes down, goal goes in, scuffle happens between the two teams. Takes a little bit of a while where the referees get together, where the referee on the goal line is signaling goal. He's watching the puck while the other officials are watching all the activity, the off puck stuff for them, which after the goal, the linesmen are allowed to discuss with the referee what they see as far as any illegal checks to the head or anything that happened prior to the goal going in as far as that. So yes, after they review, the hit was delivered to the head prior to the goal. So right call as in the goal being disallowed. That is the right call as far as that. as far as the hit from Dmitry Kulikov on Connor Sheary, this is where slow-mo gets you in a little bit of trouble and opens up the fact that we have it in the first place, kind of opens up that it opens up Pandora's box when it comes to what's legal and what's not. Did Dmitry Kulikov eventually get the shoulder to the head of Sheary? Yes. But you also have to ask yourself the question, where was the initial contact to? And the initial contact was his elbow to Sheary's shoulder, and then the Kulikov's shoulder hitting the head. No extension to it, and the puck was nearby to finish a check and create a scoring opportunity for an open seam to the net. But unfortunately, when it comes to intent, unfortunately, that does not matter when it comes to the NHL and officiating. And even Dave Jackson says he didn't think that it was deliberate. And unfortunately, whether it was deliberate or not, an intent, unfortunately, doesn't matter, and caught in a really strange position there. And also, these people, the situation room in Toronto and the referee, the on-ice officials ask themselves this. Do have to ask themselves this. Does Sheary have an opportunity to brace himself? And unfortunately, he did not. But PK Subban also spoke about how if Sheary was 6'1", we wouldn't even have this conversation. He would send Sheary probably to the 10 rows up the stands and all. And here's the thing. I can't come here and crap on the league for their inability to address head trauma and then come here and argue about Kulikov getting a penalty for that. Is it a penalty? Yeah. I don't think it should have been a major, though. And all. But listen, going back to what they look for. Intent, unfortunately, does not matter. But slow motion also brings a lot of trouble at the same time, because in game speed, you see Kulikov going after the puck, trying to create a hit to separate it, and that's what caused Mahura to score at the time before it was taken off. So we could expect possibly a suspension. I don't necessarily agree with it, though, unfortunately, but we do have to understand what they are looking for as far as that hit. But leave your comments on the YouTube channel and just give me your opinion on what you guys think of the hit, because no extension. Again, I did not see that as far as Kulikov. And even the camera that they showed behind Vasilsevskiy, even up top, you don't see an extension there too. And unfortunately, this is not Kulikov's first suspension. He did clip Tyler Seguin back in 2015 at the American Airlines Center, at which took Tyler Seguin out of the game. And then a month later, the Dallas Stars and the Florida Panthers faced off in Sunrise, where Curtis McKenzie approaches Kulikov, and then Sean Thornton and Scotty Upshaw come to Kulikov's defense after. I mean, we also got to consider the fact that what happened earlier this season with Gadjevich and Lomberg going after Zucker after his boarding on Nick Cousins. But I mean, you're thinking about, and in both situations, Nick Cousins couldn't brace himself from Jason Zucker. In this situation, Connor Sheary couldn't brace himself too. So that is really the question to take into consideration when it comes to that. And now I'm expecting it, which once again I am refreshing my feed. There's still nothing as far as Kulikov's hearing with the Department of Player Safety and George Peros there. So, and now the blue line is going to be thinner temporarily. And Paul Maurice did speak after practice, saying that if he is suspended, that Tobias Bjornfot is likely going to be an option to be on that on that bottom pair for the Florida Panthers. And as far as guessing a suspension, I'm going to say maybe like 2 or 3 games, something along that. But you never know just with the repeat offender as far as that, what direction they're going to go to. But Kulikov does have a few good arguments as far as why it shouldn't be an extremely long suspension, because when Kulikov clipped Tyler Seguin, the puck was away. In this instance, the puck was not. And it was close by enough that he was attempting to make a play, too, and all. So it's going to be interesting because Mahura, he struggled since coming back into the lineup. We've seen how the loss of Radko Gudas in free agency has really affected his play as far as playing with someone different every single time. And you can understand, too, when someone isn't without a familiar partner, that they can struggle and not know where their other partner is on the ice. Yeah, you have practice and all, but in game speed, it's so is so different. So what does Maurice do as far as splitting the pairs and all? Well, it's gonna be interesting to see. And actually, we'll discuss more about that in segment number 3. We're gonna discuss that, discuss what has been the latest as far as practice, and we're gonna discuss what the playoff picture now looks like for the Florida Panthers. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on big upsets or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's right, $200 in to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Segment number 3 here on this Monday, March 18th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday. And like we said, Tobias Bjornfot is likely going to draw into a lineup, but also we have not seen any a transaction as far as possibly Uvis Belinskis being brought up to the Florida Panthers. I mean, 18 games under him with the Florida Panthers right before being sent down and also getting a contract extension is worth something as far as that. I think they're waiting for the suspension to be handed down before they attempt to call him up. But hey, also Bjornfot has been in the league a while, even though he's been up and down between the LA Kings AHL affiliate and also the Vegas Golden Knights AHL affiliate too. So he has over 100 games under his belt, just not 100 games in the Florida Panthers system. So still, we don't know as far as who it's going to be drawing in for the Panthers. But question is it going to be Bjornfot and Josh Mahura as far as guys being together as far as line? Do they split Montour and because I mean they haven't had the last few games for them has not been the best as far as them miscommunicating off the ice. I mean, and as well as communicating to a forward to be back when they jump into the rush too. So it's going to be interesting to see if Paul Maurice does in fact split Brandon Montour and Nico Mikkola. I highly doubt it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see that either way go either way for the Florida Panthers. I mean, you don't want the two young guys to eat up too many minutes as far as that. I mean, chances are there's going to be a big emphasis on the top 4. If they keep Mikkola and Montour together on that second pair and all, especially with Aaron Ekblad out. I mean, good news though. Aaron Ekblad was on the ice on Monday afternoon from War Memorial, where he was spotted in a tracksuit too. So it's funny because Kobe Guy of Florida Hockey Now it took him a while to realize that the person in the tracksuit was Aaron Ekblad. I mean, if I were there too, I'm paying attention mostly to the people who are in practice sweaters and all, not and some of the coaching staff. But it's just strange to see Aaron Ekblad in a tracksuit there too. So good news is that he is skating, thankfully for the Florida Panthers. So also let's not forget that it's 2 weeks and then day to day after that. So the fact that he's not in pads neither, it's still going to be a little bit until we see him in the lineup again. Barkov and Evan Rodriguez did get the day off, and also Paul Maurice was working the team hard in practice today. So this time that was rest for the team to rest, as far as game action, they're still getting that intensity as far as practice too. And the Panthers, I mean, also knowing the situation at hand where you temporarily have lost your lead as far as the top spot in the Eastern Conference too, which Sergei Bobrovsky was also given the day off. And Roberto Luongo, once again, he is back in the crease for practice for the Panthers. They also used the second rink, the SeatGeek rink, the second one at War Memorial today too. So by the way, the ribbon, the official opening of War Memorial to the public will be on this Wednesday, March 20th, with a ribbon cutting ceremony too. So I know Maurice can't and the team can't necessarily replicate game speed as far as practice, but also great to see that they are getting some of that intensity because they are, you still have a little bit of time off and all, which Paul Maurice did say that they're going to ramp it up more as far as Wednesday's practice for them. Also, Tarasenko was spotted in a blue bottom six practice jersey. So maybe it looks like Evan Rodriguez is going back to the top line. Maybe he didn't practice today, so we don't necessarily know. So next one we see, if we see Erod in a white top six sweater, then there's your answer. But don't be surprised either way. And chances are Verhaeghe is staying on that Bennett line too. So also let's also go to where the playoff picture looks like for the Florida Panthers. Detroit won on Saturday, but lost on Sunday. So now the Panthers' magic number to clinch a playoff spot is now at 8 points. The New York Rangers did win against the New York Islanders on Sunday on St. Paddy's Day, and all. So now the playoff picture is now the Detroit Red Wings are on the outside looking in, which Washington, big road victory on Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada against the Vancouver Canucks, a 2-1 victory. So Washington's making a push as far as, and they're back in action tonight against the Calgary Flames, which unfortunately it's on NHL Network, which it's not in a lot of households. So the only way, if you don't have NHL Network, is to listen on the NHL app, unfortunately. As far as, and Tuesday, lots of scoreboard watching that I'm going to be doing, and I hope you guys are too, as far as where the Florida Panthers stand in everything, because Boston will be at home against the Ottawa Senators. Columbus will be visiting the Detroit Red Wings. Winnipeg will be visiting the Rangers. Toronto at Philly, which doesn't really affect the Panthers too much as far as that, but Philadelphia could slide into that wild card spot, even though I believe it'll be 5 Atlantic Division teams there when it's all said and done. But Florida, they're 12-2-3 against the Atlantic Division this year, even though none of those wins have come against the Boston Bruins. But hey, you have 2 more matchups against them, both coming in a span of a week and a half. But the ideal, someone asked me, what is the ideal matchup as far as first round? But for me, it's Detroit because of a thin blue line, and we've seen what Alex Lyon is when under pressure in the postseason, which prior to that, 3.5 games in, gets pulled, and the Panthers don't look back. But also Sergei Bobrovsky was just on a different level. And like I said in segment number 1, Tampa Bay and Florida, if the season were to end today based on points percentage, once again, points percentage, the Florida Panthers would be facing the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs and all. And Tampa Bay will be on the Atlantic Division side of things too. So them and the New York Islanders, they have the better goaltender, even though the blue line for the New York Islanders has been a little up and down as far as that. Adam Pellick's been hurt here and there. Noah Dobson has been on an increased role Ilya Sorokin is incredible. He's all world. There's something about Russian goaltenders and the market of New York that's special as far as that. So, and even though Washington struggles offensively, you know that they can lock it down defensively, and these are going to be like really tight, low scoring games too. But it's time to dig down a little bit, reevaluate too, and get your mental edge back intact for the Florida Panthers. Let's also not forget we're at March 18th. So this time last year, the Panthers were just going on a back-to-back in Philadelphia and Detroit. Sam Bennett gets hurt, and then they lose 4 straight after that. And then what happens after that? You win 6 after that. The epic Paul Maurice rant. It's about this time last year where all of that looked like it was the Florida Panthers season was just about to come apart. And things go their way. Other teams lose, and the Panthers are in the dance. So when it comes to the Panthers and their first 2-game losing streak in regulation, which let me say this, first 2-game losing streak in regulation since mid-December. I'm going to say it again. First 2-game losing streak in regulation since mid-December. That's what an incredible run the Panthers have been on. And as far as defending the rush and all, that's something that we saw a lot in around this time last year. And the Panthers are bigger. You can't teach size. And the Panthers have responded multiple times after losing. I mean, look at this schedule. I mean, look at who they faced in this 3-game stretch. Dallas, who I expect to be in the Stanley Cup final, more than likely. Carolina, who got so much better in the trade deadline, at least on paper. Tampa Bay, who has that experience, even though their depth has been depleted thanks to the cap and them extending some of their depth players too. So let's I'm not going to freak out about this 2-game losing streak right now for the Panthers. And yeah, a lot of you are likely thinking it's not only a 2-game losing streak, but Panthers barely scrapped it out against the Dallas Stars on last Tuesday too. I understand that. So it's not the best stretch at the moment for the Panthers. 1-10 on the power play in the last 2 games. The Panthers had so many opportunities, multiple posts. Barkov had just an incredible chance with an open net on Vasilsevskiy to possibly tie the game, but unfortunately just couldn't get it through. But the Panthers, they're still top 3 in the league in power play percentage. So they're getting hot too. And it's going to be, but it's also going to be what's going to happen down the stretch because at 5-on-5, because the Panthers, yeah, they're in the top 10 in total scoring as far as that, but 5-on-5, they're 25th in the league. So let's see I want to see what they can do in these last 10 plus games now, as far as what they can do as far as continuing to create those chances off the forecheck, off the cycle, rebound opportunities at 5-on-5, because it's been when you see so much scoring on the man advantage and you play just sound defense, when you sometimes forget about their lack of 5-on-5 scoring, but they're 25th in the NHL, and there's a lot of non-playoff teams around them around that, and that's according to moneypuck.com that are around the bottom in 5-on-5 scoring, and penalties and power play opportunities, they're less in the postseason. So let's see what the Florida Panthers can do as far as this last stretch right before. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Guys, there won't be an episode tomorrow, but we will be back with you guys on Wednesday for another edition of Winans Wednesday. So come back here as we are going to discuss the verdict on what could be as far as Demitri Kulakov's possible suspension. Nothing official yet, but we are going to discuss that on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.